Available in paperback at e-readers, Isis, Dark Incubus. The goddess next door gets enthralled in a romantic entanglement with an evil incubus in this all-new Isis series adventure. Get your copy of Isis, Dark Incubus in paperback and e-readers today. The Concourse Plaza, one of the 2 remaining movie theaters in the Bronx, will be closing in May.
For all of modern American history, the movie theater has been a cornerstone of our culture, a gathering point for families, friends, maybe even a first date. And for more than 30 years, people in the Bronx turn to the Concourse Plaza Multiplex. But next month, the theater has housed all of those laughs, the cries, the suspense, and of course everything in between will shut its doors for good. Here's Josh Einiger.
At prime movie time on a Thursday evening, no one was watching much of anything at the Concourse Plaza Multiplex. The box office empty, no one in line for popcorn, and the coming attractions look even more bleak. This theater opened back in 1991 when Home Alone and Thelma and Louise were the big hits. But by the end of this spring, the curtains will drop here for the last time.
You got all these streaming networks, so that's probably what it is. People don't, instead of spending them on your movie theaters, they probably just want to stay home.
The Concourse Plaza Multiplex is one of just 2 movie theaters in the Bronx. The other, at Bay Plaza in Co-op City, will soon stand alone after parent company Showcase Cinemas tells Eyewitness News it simply couldn't come to terms on a new lease agreement. Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson says she isn't that surprised.
This is happening across the board, where you sometimes have landlords and owners that are raising the price exorbitantly, where the tenants can no longer afford it, and they'll say, you know what, it's not worth it anymore.
The theater sits in a once busy shopping center on 161st Street, bordered by the Bronx Court Complex. But some major stores and a food court have closed up shop here in recent years, and without the theater, Nino Billups, who takes his 6-year-old here at least twice a month, says it'll be low-income New Yorkers who pay the price.
If the landlord have any type of love, of courtesy in his heart, and he care for people, he care for children, he should leave it as is, work something out, and put himself in other people's shoes.
No word how they plan to fill that massive theater space when it closes its doors for good at the end of May. In the Melrose section of the Bronx, Josh Einiger, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
Now, I was a teenager when they opened up the Concourse Plaza Mall back in 1991. And back in 1991, the Bronx was a completely different place, filled with a lot of burnt down buildings that were abandoned and a lot of crime from the crack epidemic, and the entire neighborhood was blighted and just a complete mess. And they decided to open up the Concourse Plaza Mall as the cornerstone of trying to revitalize the South Bronx and try to breathe new life into a dead area. Now, the Concourse Plaza Mall was just a couple of blocks away from Yankee Stadium, and it was a couple of blocks away from the courthouse, and it was a place that people came to go shopping, and they came to go to the movies due to the 2 anchors that were a major part of that area. Now, the first part of being an anchor of that area was the wall-bound supermarket that was owned by the A&P Corporation, and that supermarket allowed for a lot of people to be able to buy groceries that they couldn't get from other local markets that were in the area at the time, because we had little stores like Associated and Key Food on 167th Street, and they had a very limited selection, but wall bounds would allow people to get a larger selection of choices at the grocery and be able to shop like other people do at other markets in the area. Now, that was the first of the anchors, and the other anchor was the Concourse Plaza Multiplex Cinemas, and the Concourse Plaza Multiplex Cinemas was a place that was designed to give a lot of people in the Bronx a full multiplex theater experience, something many people didn't have in the Bronx because most of the theaters were just independent theaters at the time. And what was sad was even then, while we had those independent theaters, sadly a lot of them were being closed down and demolished over the course of the late 80s, because I remember seeing many of these theaters winding up getting closed, like the Lowe's Paradise up on Fordham Road, which is now considered to be a landmark right now. But in the late 80s, they weren't seeing a lot of these theaters as landmarks, and other theaters that were in the area were demolished, like the legendary RKO Fordham and the Valentine Triplex. And I remember another theater around 1985 on Jerome Avenue being demolished. I remember that theater being demolished to make way for the retail space that Lionel Kitty City took over in the 90s. And that was sad because at the time, the Bronx was losing a lot of its theaters, and people didn't have a place to go to the movies. And I remember the sad days of the late 80s when they demolished the RKO Fordham to make way for new retail space that housed the Dr. J's jeans and sneaker store, along with the Burger King and the Lane Bryant store. And I also remember when they demolished the Valentine Triplex in 1989 to make way for the other retail spaces that housed the Foot Locker and other retail stores back in the early 90s. And the Concourse Multiplex cinemas were supposed to be designed to take the place of all of those movie theaters that we wound up losing, and was supposed to be a gathering space for people to be able to go see all of the movies and be able, after they go see the movies, go upstairs and check out the mall, which featured a lot of great fast food such as McDonald's, KFC, Arthur Treacher's, and I believe there was a Caribbean Jerk Grill. I mean, there was always something to do at the Concourse Plaza Mall, and I remember going there back when I had just graduated high school. I think it was 1992. I remember going over there to go see the movie Boomerang with my sister and my cousin, and I went to that mall to see multiple movies over the years. I remember going with my sister to go see the movie Panther, which was a great movie, and many other movies. I mean, in 2002, I went there to go see Spider-Man. I mean, that was a fantastic experience. And I remember, the last time I went there was I went to see Spider-Man 3 there as well. But the last time I went there, it was a great memory for me because I had just gotten my job at the City College, and I was going out for the first time as related to having money in my pocket. And me and my brother, we decided to go see the first MCU movie, Iron Man. And that was a great day for me. I mean, it was a great day for me because I had lost some weight. I was wearing all of my Brooks Brothers gear and looking good. And I remember going there to go see Iron Man back in 2008. And I went there and again had a great time over at the Concourse Multiplex Cinema. And I remember this place just being a fun place to be because I used to go to that mall on the regular. I mean, when I was living on Grant Avenue, I was going to that mall on the regular. I mean, after I go to the library, go and look for work, I would go there and go pick up groceries for my family. And I was just deeply saddened to hear about the end of the Concourse Multiplex Cinema because that whole cinema was a major staple of Bronx life, and it was a major staple of that area that basically breathed brand new life into that dying area. Because that area, I remember when that mall opened, it was really rough, and I really started to shape out after Rudy Giuliani's Quality of Life initiative, and the quality of life really improved in the area. But even though that he had the Quality of Life initiative, sadly we did lose the wall bounce back in 1998, and sadly we lost the wall bounce because of Pookie and Ray Ray shoplifting. But the neighborhood still was a lot better than it was before. And sadly, what's happened with the Concourse Multiplex, once it leaves, the area is going to go in a further state of decline that I saw starting way back in 2018. Now, 2018, sadly, that neighborhood really started to go on a major state of decline. And I was out going to the library back in those days, and back in those days, I started to see a lot of heroin addicts coming into the library and just nodding off. I started to see the neighborhoods really start to go into this decline, and sadly, I started to see a lot of stores really start to not really struggle in the area, because when they had opened up this Concourse Plaza Mall, it not only had a wall bounce, it had a CVS drugstore, it had restaurants like KFC in the mall, and it had McDonald's and all these other things, and it also had stores like a Radio Shack. I remember when they had a Petland discounts. I mean, all of those stores, when the pandemic hit, basically wound up closing, because the last time I went there was about 2023. I had to go there for jury duty, and when I went there for jury duty, I mean, the entire area looked like it just went straight to hell, sadly. And the Concourse Plaza Multiplex cinemas, they were just trying to come back. I mean, they were trying to make a comeback because they had been closed for some time because they had suffered a lot of water damage from a flood. And they had managed to renovate that entire theater around 2021. But sadly, they are deciding to close in 2024 after spending millions in renovation. They're deciding to close this theater, not because of people want to believe streaming, but the reason why I believe that they're closing is because they said that the theater owner and the landlord couldn't come to an agreement. And that's really sad, because this theater owner and this landlord really don't see the impact of this theater on the neighborhood, and they also don't see the impact of this closing on the overall Hollywood box office. Because when it comes to the Bronx at this time only has 2 theaters right now, and one of them is closing. And with them only being 1 theater before the summer movie season, this is going to impact Hollywood's box office in a very negative way, because the Bronx has over 1 million residents, and with the Bronx having over 1 million residents, that means that there's going to be a lot of losses as related to Hollywood's box office, and the closing of this theater at the end of May, which is the start of the summer movie season, is going to negatively impact Hollywood as related to its box office, because a lot of the big movies are going to be opening way later, like the Deadpool and Wolverine movie. I mean, this is something that's going to really hurt that movie's box office, because here you have a major metropolitan area, New York City, which is a place which is known for a good chunk of box office, and we only have 1 theater for people to go to, and that's going to really hurt Hollywood's bottom line. So this comes at a really bad time for Hollywood, which has been struggling for the last couple of years. I mean, most of the money for these movies is made at theaters, and this whole dispute with this landlord really hurts Hollywood's business. It really hurts Hollywood's business, because you're not going to have a theater for people to go see many of these big movies that the studios have poured hundreds of millions of dollars into, and you're going to have an entire borough of people who only have 1 theater to go to, and that theater is far, far away in a place called Co-op City, and that's really going to hurt the bottom line for Hollywood. So this decision to close this theater really comes at a bad time, and it really shows the lack of critical thinking that these theater owners and this landlord have. I mean, short term, they were just thinking about the rent for this place, not understanding that you're going to be hurting the profits of Hollywood's entertainment industry. So this is a major body blow for not only the Bronx, which will lose out as related to one of the anchors of that area being closed, and that leading to the further blight of that mall, which was a bright spot in the Bronx, because I remember when that mall was a bright spot in the Bronx in the mid-90s. But the sad part of this whole mall, of this Concourse Plaza Multiplex cinema closing, is that this comes in conjunction with the closing of the CVS in the area, which has been closed for a good 2 to 3 years, and other stores like the Petland Discounts closing and the Radio Shack closing, and there being other stores closing. I mean, that's going to impact the area negatively, because the only two stores that are currently open in this mall are the Food Bazaar supermarket. I think right now, I think they're still open, because they opened up a one on 149th Street at the Gateway Plaza. They have a Food Bazaar there that took the place of the Toys R Us, and this closing basically further blights this mall. A mall people were still going to, even in spite of the drug addicts that basically were allowed to take over parts of that area, that basically took it over, because the library over on Melrose has closed. They're doing a renovation over there. They're trying to renovate that library. And again, a lot of the traffic from that library came over to that mall. A lot of people came over to the Walgreens, and the area is it's fallen off really bad. And the Concourse Plaza closing after 30 years takes the area further back down to what it used to be when I was in high school. I mean, I remember when this mall opened, and I remember it being a major event. I mean, I remember when this mall opened, and it just really brought back that area and made it where you had an incentive to go to that area around Yankee Stadium. And that area really has lost a lot of retailers that I used to go to on the regular. I remember when they closed the Crown Diner. I mean, Crown Diner had the best donuts. They closed that diner in 2018, and you had Chase talking a lot of crap, talking about they wanted to expand that into a bigger bank, but that never happened. I mean, here we are in 2024, and that area and the place where the Crown Diner was never was expanded into the bank, and we lost the Crown Diner, and now we're losing the Concourse Plaza Multiplex cinemas, and the whole thing is that area is turning into a blighted area, primarily because of landlords speculating and their greed, and these landlords speculating that they're going to be able to open up other types of stores, but those stores never open. Again, I can point back to the Crown Diner, again, a staple of the community, having some legendary, iconic donuts. I mean, I used to go there and get those donuts from there, because those donuts were absolutely fantastic, but they decided to close the Crown Diner after over 20 plus years, because the landlord thought he was going to get more money from the bank, but the bank never expanded their business, and that created holes in the area. Holes in an area I used to go to on the regular. I mean, when I was out here looking for work back around 2014, 2015, I used to go to this mall, and before then, I would walk 9 blocks to this mall, because it was just safe back then in New York City. You could just go and walk to the movie theater. If you lived on Grant Avenue, you could just walk straight down Morris Avenue, head over to that theater and go watch a movie, or you could walk down to the library, or you could walk to that mall to go grocery shopping at places like the Food Bazaar. I mean, it was a halfway decent neighborhood. Unfortunately, we had a lot of greed come in around 2018 when they had this Obama grant money. And ever since the Obama grant money came in, the landlords there started getting greedy and speculating, looking for bigger money. And as they looked for bigger money, the community got poorer and the quality of life got poorer. That's what happened in that area of Morrisania and happened in that area of the Bronx. And that area is going to get far worse, because with there being the closing of the Concourse Plaza Multiplex Cinema, I mean, that area, nobody's going to have an incentive to go here, and people will be forced to go out and do more streaming. I mean, I had plans to go spend money on a movie ticket to go see Transformers 1, and I wanted to go to a local theater in the Bronx, but that's not possible because all the theaters here in the Bronx are closed. I mean, the one movie theater we had here in Parkchester is now a Marshall's, and the theaters that at 161st Street, that's gone, and I don't even know how to get from Parkchester to Bay Plaza. I mean, and again, I wouldn't want to take that hour-long trip. So sadly, I'm going to have to miss seeing Transformers 1 at the theater because there are no theaters in the Bronx. And with there being no theaters in the Bronx, again, I don't want to take some long commute to just go see a movie. And you'll have people saying, oh, streaming killed this theater. No, streaming didn't kill this theater. No, what killed this theater was greed, plain and simple, landlord greed. Landlords who are speculating in the Bronx on how this property is going to be worth so much, but now the entire neighborhood is absolutely worthless, and people have no incentive to come to that area outside of trying to fulfill their obligations for jury duty. Now, if you want to pick up some of my positive black fiction on the SJS Direct imprint, you can find the books of the SJS Direct universe, such as the ISIS series, the Steam series, the John Haynes series, the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, my black sorority novel, The Thetas, my black vampire novel, The Eternal Night, and my black business novel, A Recipe for Success. You can find all of those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find all of those books at other online booksellers like Draft2Digital, Google Play. You can also find them in paperback format at online booksellers like Barnes & Noble and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you'd like to see me make more videos about life in the South Bronx, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.